Hello and welcome to Class 16. Today we are going to be discussing the Paralympics.
So Paralympics in general are basically the Olympics, but they're catered to people who have disabilities. So like if you're visually impaired, if you can't walk normally, or any kind of other physical impairment, then they have a separate kind of sport competition, I guess, and that's called the Paralympics. And one of the sports is actually goalball. So next slide. So goalball was created in 1946 to rehabilitate visually impaired veterans from World War II. And when they talk about rehabilitation, we're not only talking about like the physical cases, like, now they're visually impaired. It's also harder for them to do any kind of physical thing. So they have now this new game called goalball. But it's also because goalball is a team sport. As you can see here, you have like two teams. One team has three people, the other team also has three people, and if you have any kind of team game, you're also going to have teamwork, and your social skills, your emotional state are all going to improve. So that's also really important for rehabilitation, especially if you suffer from like PTSD from war. So goalball is actually catered toward athletes who have less than 10% of their vision remaining or visual field restricted to 20 degrees, and those are the only people allowed to participate. And it was introduced at the Paralympic Games in Toronto, Canada in 1976. And you have two halves. So, and each half is 12 minutes each. And the athletes wear a blackout mask on the playing court. You can see in the pictures there, you have I guess this yellow team with kind of just like a sleeping mask you think of, and it just blocks out their vision. So everybody is on an even playing field. Next slide. So goalball is actually a super simple game to play, and it's also really easy to understand. Basically, you're rolling the ball onto the opposite goal while opposing players try to block the ball with their bodies. It's very, very similar to soccer, but obviously they're not kicking the ball, they're not like standing up and running because they aren't able to see. So that's why a lot of the pictures you see on this slide and on the last slide, they're all kind of crawling on the ground. And the only way they're able to actually tell where the balls are is because there's like bells in the ball, and when the balls move, they can hear those bells and then figure out, oh, the ball is this far away from me if the sound is really soft, or the ball is super close to me if the sound is really loud. And the game only stops when the ball goes out, or a goal is scored, or there is a foul. So a really simple game, and it's really helpful and easy to play for people who are visually impaired. That's it.
So next sport is archery. So archery is a sport that is one of the early sports that kind of was incorporated into the Paralympics competitions. So as you may know, archery uses a bow to shoot arrows at a target. Now these targets may vary in size and distance depending on what competitions you are participating in. But for individual events, um, the targets are placed 70 meters away from where you're standing, and the size of the targets are like about 1.2 meters in diameter, and that's only for the recurve bow. For the compound bow, which uses pulleys, it makes it easier for the archer, the person shooting the bow, to shoot it easier. The target is placed 50 meters away from your standing, and the target size is about 0.8 meters or 80 centimeters in diameter. So now, how this competition is organized is that we're uh, yeah, organized is um, athletes with that are in wheelchairs and impairment in all four limbs, meaning that their two legs, their two arms have some sort of injury or malfunction, I guess, if you want to put it that way, uh, that they can't fully function, like fully function to their best of abilities. They're put in W1. In W2, they're also in a wheelchair, but instead of impairment in all four limbs, they can actually use their arm to the fullest. And in W3, these are standing athletes. Now, standing athletes are usually like amputees, which with one limb like medically chopped off, I guess, for whatever reasons. So those are the 3 classes that athletes are split into. So for scoring, now archery is usually split into 6 rounds in total, and in each round you're given 12 arrows to shoot at a target, depending on your bow, distance, everything. And in each round you're given 4 minutes to shoot all 12 arrows, and highest score of each round gets to move on to next round. And there's 10 rings in total. Sorry, there's a mistake in there. It's supposed to say 10 rings. The innermost ring, which you may see on the image, it's kind of blurred out. The yellowmost ring, is worth 10 points. And the outermost ring is worth 1 point, which is the black circle on the outside. And the arrows that miss, that don't hit the target, are not counted and are worth 0 points. And these are knockout rounds, which means like it could be like single knockout, double knockout, which means if you lose 1 or 2 rounds, you're knocked out, you're eliminated from the bracket, and you're done.
Swimming. Rules for swimming. Rules for the sport are adopted from those set forth by the International Swimming Federation, the FINA. Swimmers compete individually in backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, freestyle, individual medley, and as teams in relay races. At the Paralympics, World Championship, and other elite level competitions, swimmers compete in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Differences from regular swimming. Significant differences between able-bodied and Paralympic swimming include a starting position and adaptations allowed for visually impaired swimmers. Competitors may start a race by standing on a platform and diving into the pool as in non-disabled swimming, or by sitting on the platform and diving in, or they may start the race in the water. In events where blind and visually impaired, people called tappers may stand at the end of the pool and use a pole to tap the swimmers when they approach the wall, indicating when the swimmers should turn or end the race. No prostheses or assistive devices may be worn during competition.
Taekwondo. Overview. Para-Taekwondo is a variation of Taekwondo for athletes with a disability or impairment. The World Taekwondo Federation founded the Para-Taekwondo Committee in 2006 to develop and promote Taekwondo for people with disabilities. Discipline/competition. Kyoryugi and Poomsae are the 2 disciplines that the WT conducts in competition format to include athletes of all impairments in para-taekwondo. Nevertheless, the rules of para-kyoryugi differ from the Olympic kyoryugi, as all techniques to the head are prohibited and punches are awarded no points. Kyoryugi is sparring and Poomsae is martial arts forms. Para-Taekwondo kyoryugi is conducted in a single elimination system. The duration shall be carried out for 3 rounds of 2 minutes with a 1 minute rest period in between rounds. In case of a tie score after finishing third round, the golden point round, the 4th round, will be conducted following the third round with a 1 minute rest period. 2 points are awarded for a valid foot technique to the trunk protector, 3 points for a valid foot turning technique to the trunk protector, and 4 points are awarded for a valid spinning technique to the trunk protector. In addition, 1 point is awarded for every gamjeom, a penalty deduction given to opponent. Para-Taekwondo Poomsae is conducted in singles or doubles elimination system. The duration between 20 and 120 seconds. The contestant must perform each Poomsae with rhythm and precision during that duration. The contestants will perform the Poomsae alternative in a match. The total score of Para-Taekwondo Poomsae is 10 points. Scoring is divided into 2 point categories: technical and presentation. The maximum points is technical is 4 and presentation is 6.
So this is cycling. So Paralympic cycling was developed in the 1980s. And it made its first debut in 1984 at New York in the Paralympics. And they used bicycles, tricycles, and hand cycles to compete. And originally it was designed for those who have vision impairment, which means that they can't really see well. But like later they like expanded it to like include other people, like people without legs and like those with like cerebral palsy. There are 5 sport classes for hand cycling, 2 for tricycle, and 5 for bicycle. So the difference between Paralympic cycling and normal cycling is that they have tricycles and hand cycles, and they were like the difference is that it's for people who can't like pedal with their legs or keep stability. So like in the image at the bottom left, that's a hand cycle, and you can see that they pedal with their hands instead of their feet. So that might be for those people who can't like move their legs and stuff. And then the image on the right would be the tricycle, which is for people who might not be able to keep stability. Maybe they don't have like arms, or like they can't really move that well. Then they would use like a tricycle. Yeah, that's it.
Hello, and today I'm going to be presenting my topic on para-alpine skiing. Para-alpine skiing, paraskiing. Basically, how paraskiing started was it was basically started as, of course, a sport for people with disabilities, specifically usually disabilities for people of which had lost their legs, or maybe lost some hands. That's what this sport was mainly there to solve. As in, like, people for who example maybe had limbs blown off, maybe had their hands extremely injured, hands or arms extremely injured. This is usually where the sport started for these people. And so that's why this sport traces its origins back all the way into World War II, because of the large amount of people who were injured in World War II. The sport became, or at least this sport was basically popularized, if you can say that, because skiing was an extremely popular sport to many back then. And because of that, many people tried to find ways that would circumvent the unfortunate events of which occurred to them and their body, therefore creating paraskiing. The first one who was really documented to at least try this was a guy who went by the name of Franz Wendel, who was actually a German. He had lost a leg because it was amputated, and he successfully attached basically two crutches to a pair of short skis, to where basically these crutches were attached to short skis of which he would hold to his side and do that, while he would sit on something of which would basically guide him, or like basically guide him. Yeah. Next slide. So the main equipment of which is used nowadays. The primary equipment of which is used in these the para skiing sport is a myriad of different equipments. However, the some of the main ones of which are out there are like outrigger skis, sit skis, and mono skis. So outrigger skis, if I do believe, it's the one of which where you have a where you have like two where you use your arms to basically ski. Sit skis, that's also it's basically where you've had your legs disabled, so where you would sit on a seat that is attached to a ski underneath, and with that ski you also have two balancing skis on the outside. That's mainly, I do believe that's what mainly a sit ski looks like. There's of course a mono ski. And depending on the classification, there may be other equipments that may be used by skiers, including some people have guide skiers and cut down ski poles. Quickly, let me explain what are cut down ski poles. Cut down ski poles are basically, so let me first explain what a ski pole is. A ski pole is mainly the pole of which you have on your arm. Or usually people use ski poles to mainly try to balance out their weight while they're skiing, or possibly basically to just basically turn sometimes. And cut down ski poles are, as the name implies, cut down ski poles. This is mainly to help counteract the how should I put it, the new way of which you're skiing. You might not need an extremely long pole like many normal skiers use, so they use cut down ski poles, since that now their center of mass has decreased low to the floor. That means they need different sort of ski poles to do such. Some also do use anthropomorphic aids and prosthesis. These are basically to help them while they're skiing and in that sort. As I've already mentioned, there are multiple different ways of which people do ski. Some people have maybe lost their arms, some people have maybe lost their legs, some people maybe even both. For standing skiers in this case, there are different rules to determine the equipment of which is allowed for them to use, such as maybe 1 poles, 2 poles, or sometimes even no poles. And even the amount of skis vary. That's because they don't have all the legs, so it's either 1 or 2 skis, depends in this case, yet again. Next slide, please. Now, let me go down into one of the first categories of which I'm going to talk about today. This is the first category. It is called the downhill ski category. It is basically a time trial ski course, mainly focused on the time and speed aspect of the course, mainly cutting corners and going as fast as you can. These competitors who ski down these courses usually go down a course of around 450 meters to 850 meters, and that's the distance of which they have to basically travel downwards. And this consists of many jumps and turns. With these jumps and turns, you're supposed to make certain turns around these flags. If you look up actually at the top left corner, you'll see a picture. Those flags are flags of which you have to hit in order to basically to qualify for the course. The winner is determined in this case by who made it the fastest in their runs. There sometimes, depending on the regulations, there usually are allowed at least you are obviously allowed at least 1 run, and sometimes in some competitions there have actually been multiple runs. Skiers navigate between gates, as I've already mentioned, the flags, the poles, as you can see in the top left image. Those gates are basically the where you have to go and signal, like you have to pass that turn in order to qualify, because if you don't pass that turn, then you're basically going off course in this case. The fewest gates among, and basically, if they miss a set of these gates, they are disqualified from the race. That's why probably one of the hardest part of this section is actually to go the fastest while making sharp turns around these sort of gates. This is going to be the last slide of which I'm going to be covering today. It's going to be about this category called the Super G. The Super G is less technical than the other categories of which the other category of which I have mentioned. It is, and it's mainly known for the speed of the skier. And this is even less, how should I say, this is even less technical than downhill skiing. That's because with this, you have to navigate basically a vertical drop between 400 to 600 meters from top to bottom. And compared to alpine skiing, the other alpine skiing courses, this is actually mid length for that, and it is actually even shorter than the previously mentioned downhill skiing. This sort of category is mainly all about speed, while downhill skiing is all about time and speed. This one's just all about speed, speed, speed. The competitors in this will usually be alternating between hitting blue and red gates just like in downhill. However, this one's actually a little bit faster, and men need to, and depending on your gender, you would either have to hit 35 or 30 gates. And with this, it comes down to basically who can hit the amount of gates the fastest, much like downhill skiing, just a little bit faster in this case.
So today I'm gonna be talking about wheelchair fencing. Alright, so wheelchair fencing first started in 1988. It's based off of fencing, which was a sport created a long time ago. This was first invented also in World War II at Stoke Mandeville Hospital for soldiers who were going through recovery and rehabilitation. Later after the 1960 Rome Olympics, it became a very popular all-rounded and adapted sport, and it required a lot of different skills like strength, precision, technique, and yeah. So it was started in one of the first Paralympics, and then it has a different system than fencing, although it's really similar. Alright, next slide. Alright, so wheelchairs. The rules of wheelchair fencing are that the wheelchairs are anchored to the ground, so it forces people to use more upper body strength to move the wheelchair and stuff. And then they are all connected to this electrical signal box similar to normal fencing. And basically what that does is that it's connected to the sword thing of the fencers, and then when the sword touches something, it activates the electrical box, and then that gives them a point. So everyone wears protective clothing similar to normal fencing, and then the first person to land 5 touches wins the game. So, and then for people who are disabled to the point where their arms, can't hold the thing, then the swords can be attached to the arms. Alright, next slide. So there are 3 categories of weapons in the thing. It's the same as normal fencing. They have foil, saber, and epee. They're all different swords that like end up having different styles and stuff. So it's pretty similar to normal fencing. Alright, so they're then split into categories, so it's not unfair. So like each person doesn't have an unfair advantage over the other. So basically the first category is 1A, where competitors unable to balance in the wheelchair and having a disability that prevents the extension of the elbow or sword arm. So that's one category. The second category is competitors unable to balance in the wheelchair and having a disability that inhibits finger movement of the sword arm. So basically they can't really control their fingers very well. And then category 2 is where they can't balance. They are able to balance in the wheelchair. So that means that they can like stay balanced in the wheelchair, and they can, yeah. And then category 3 is competitors able to balance in the wheelchair, but they're unable to use legs for assistance. So that means that they're like more disabled in the leg area. And yeah. And category 4 is competitors able to balance in the wheelchair and to use legs for assistance. So that's more like for people who are, I don't know, like paralyzed in the spine or something. So they can still move their legs, but they still need a wheelchair and stuff. So yeah.